Now, you all heard the story about how I met Ronan, the strange little man from the land of the bark and the little people, who used to sell me books. And you've all heard about how 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 2004, whatever that was, 4 years ago, Richard and I had totally run out of ideas for who was going to have the big weekend, and Richard said, what about that weird bloke you buy books from? You've all heard about how Ronan then came over, and he turned out not just to be a weird bloke that I buy books from, but it turned out to be somebody. I mean, can any of you imagine us doing a weird weekend without him?
No.
Now, Ronan phoned me up about 3 weeks ago, said, you know, I'm not even going to try and do the Irish accent, it's appallingly racist of me, but he said, you know, it's my 60th birthday on Friday, I don't want you to make a fuss of it. Promise me you won't make a fuss of it. I said, of course I won't make a fuss of it. But today, 2 days after his 60th birthday, and I never promised I wouldn't make a fuss about that. Karina! Just like everything else this weekend, the cues have gone horribly wrong. Try it again. Karina! Happy birthday, Ronan! Happy birthday to Ronan. Happy birthday to you.
I am touched, as people have often said about me. Thank you so much. Now, I overplayed yesterday. I talked much longer than I was supposed to, and I caused John terrible stress as a result because the whole program was put out. I don't want to do so today. Sorry. But I notice some people do not have seats. There are actually seats available. I notice there are ladies standing. We can't have this. We can't have this. Surely, there are plenty of seats if you want them up there, right? The story. I didn't mean you to go out. The story I'm going to tell you today is true. I knew the village, and I knew the people concerned. Now, I'm not saying a little poetic embroidery won't enter into it as I unfold this thrilling saga, but every incident in it is true, nearly. It's true enough. Now, when I was 15, and those of you who are mathematicians and can subtract 15 from, what am I, 60, yes? Will find that that was around about 1964. I was on holiday in a small village in the south of Ireland called Duncannon. And it was just after the incident I am going to describe took place. It was an incident which filled all with awe and wonder when it occurred. Duncannon is a very small village. Now, not very small by Irish standards. It has about 200 inhabitants. That almost makes it a metropolis. For a very small Irish village, you need to go to Arthurstown nearby. 2 houses and a broken wheelbarrow, that's Arthurstown. Duncannon was a little bit larger, and it throve mainly on the tourist industry. Most tourists went there to stay at the hotel, and the name of the hotel, just so nobody got sort of confused about it, was the hotel. Now, the proprietor of the hotel was Johnny Reed, a ferocious character with great hairy arms and a great hairy moustache. Her husband, on the other hand, to whose name she had never changed her own, was called Eddie Kelly, a man with a receding personality, who helped out in the bar. And they had a son, little Freddie Kelly. Little Freddie Kelly was one of those cheerful little chappies whom you generally want to kick out of the way. Typical, mischievous little boy. Now, it all began one morning, early in the morning, when an almighty explosion rent the air. Everyone emerged from his house, or hut, or cardboard box, or whatever he was living in at the time. Strange Neanderthaloid creatures who hadn't left their beds in years suddenly were tumbling down the stairs to see what was the cause of this. It had come from the direction of the field, which was a field which was nearby. So they all went scooting up there. There's an old ballad, it's about Robin Hood, which says, "Old folks saw so who scarce could go, over their sticks did hop." And there was pretty much the same thing there. Even the sergeant of the Civic Guards, Sergeant Tobin, a bluff man with a kindly face, came running out of the police station. The police station was only remarkable for the fact it had a large sign in the window threatening grave consequences to anyone who forgot to license his bulls. But Sergeant Tobin was a figure to be reckoned with. He stood very tall. He had a fine shock of white hair, but he was in no way decrepit. Others rushed up the hill. It was known locally as the Hill. And amongst those who went were Mr. Joyce, the grocer, a man who always got a sick stomach when there was going to be a thunderstorm and told everyone about it. He was the local weather prophet. Mrs. Joyce, a harassed woman behind a pair of glasses, and various little Joyce children. There was a family called Downs there, no relation, I assume. The father was a fisherman of singularly low intelligence, and the mother had seen the harder side of life. And the son was called Kevin Downs. And I hesitate to use the term gutter snipe about anyone, but if anyone deserved such a term, it was he. They all rushed up to the field. And there in the field was a vast crater, a huge crater. They looked over the hedge. No one wished to approach the crater. "God, now, what might that be, Mick?" said one. "Ah, Pat, that's a hole, that is." "Sure, I know 'tis a hole. Can't I see it with both eyes of me? But what could make a hole like that? I think it must have been made by a kind of a thing." A kind of a thing. God, if it's the truth you've spoken, then 'tis no lie you've uttered. A thing it is. Should we go across the field and see if the thing is safe? Sergeant Tobin maintained a dignified silence. He knew it was unwise to pronounce upon things till you'd seen what they were like. The rest of them, however, entered into the field. They tiptoed across. This was not to avoid the numerous cowpats. It was to avoid being heard by the thing if it happened to be alive. These Neanderthaloid faces came moving towards the crater that had been caused by the thing. was not entirely new to unusual phenomena. There was a creature that wandered around the streets that was supposed to be a hybrid of a sheep and a goat. It was known to the locals as the yote. And now, sheep and goats don't usually interbreed. There has been one very famous case called the Toast of Botswana. It was to be found in Botswana, not Duncannon. And the reason it was called the Toast of Botswana was it became a celebrity. It's most unusual for a goat and sheep cross to exist. Now, I don't think this thing was really a goat-sheep cross. I think it was just a very evil-looking goat. But you avoided it. When you saw it coming down your side of the street, you crossed to the other side of the street. But such strange figures were not unusual in Duncannon. But huge holes made by tings, now that was a different matter altogether. So over they went to the great crater, and every head stared down. They looked like Neanderthal men looking into a pit. No, I do the Neanderthal man an injustice. Because I am told if you dressed a Neanderthal man up in normal clothing, he would appear quite like a normal person. By no stretch of the imagination could the inhabitants of Duncannon appear like normal people. These strange primevally etched faces glanced over, and there was something in the bottom of the crater. God pat you all right, 'tis a ting all right, but what kind of a ting is it? It was very difficult to make out what kind of thing there was there down at the bottom. UFO, said Pat. How dare you speak to me like that, and ladies present? No, it is a flying saucer. It doesn't look like a saucer at all. Well, it is one of those things, you know, that come out of the air. A learned Duncannonian said, "Do you mean a meteor?" "No, I've got one of those at home. I put a shilling in it when I need more gas." Well, they were all agreed. Whatever it was down there, it was a ting. Then little Freddie Kelly, son of the barkeep, decided he would go down and take a look at the ting. And several other children followed him. There was Vincent Foley, who looked like a weasel and who probably still does, if he has been allowed to survive to this date. Kevin Downs, the gutter snipe in waiting, and various others. Down they went, and they frisked and frolicked in the bottom of the crevasse, going very near to the ting and even standing on it. It was quite small, but certainly of artificial composition. And then somebody said, "Do you think the ting is radioactive?" I don't hear it playing music. No, I mean that it's going to give us all cancer. Oh, God! And I've been looking down at it. Will it give me cancer in both my eyes? No, but those children shouldn't be down there. Johnny Reed, still down in the pub, heard that her little Freddie was in the pit with the possibly radioactive ting. She shot up as fast as her tree trunk-like legs would carry her, and pulled little Freddie out. She hauled him back to the hotel, which, if you remember, was a hotel. And, lacking nuclear decontaminants, she scrubbed him all over with carbolic soap. Certainly, any radioactive matter was gone, and so was most of his skin by the time she had finished. She was a chiropodist, by the way, as well as a barkeeper. That is quite an irrelevant fact, but I thought you might like to know. Anyway, just keeping an eye on the time. Jonathan is getting fretful about the time these days. Now, anyway, they were still looking at that thing, and at this stage, Sergeant Tobin said, "It's time I did something. I will ring somebody up." So down he went to the police station again, passing the notice saying, "Have you licensed your bulls?" And went in. Now the telephonic system in Duncannon in those days was rather primitive. You rang and you got your telephone line picked up at the local post office. They put you through to whoever you wanted to get through to. "Give me the army," said Sergeant Tobin. No answer. "Hello, Bridget, are you there? Get me put through to the army." "Bridget?" God, what's happened to that? "Oh, I know where Bridget is," said a little voice, his assistant, Guard Feely. "I know where Bridget is. She's up looking at the king." "That lot of good that's doing," said Sergeant Tobin. "I'll go down to the post office myself and bring it from there." "Oh, she locked the post office before she went out. She's very careful, you know." "In that case," said Sergeant Tobin, "I shall smash the window and go into the post office." Down he went with Guard Feely. The Irish police are called guards, incidentally, in case anyone didn't know. Down they went to the post office. "Oh God," said Guard Feely, "we've forgotten our truncheons. How are we going to break the window?" "Come over here, Guard Feely," said Sergeant Tobin. And suddenly seizing him by the neck, he smashed his head against the window. "I knew you'd come in useful one day," said Sergeant Tobin. Through the window he clambered. "God, I've cut myself awfully badly," he said. "Oh, Sergeant, you should really have made the hole a bit bigger before you went through. My head isn't that size, you know. I'm kind of microcephalic." "Where did you learn a word like that?" "Oh, the doctor told me. He said I was an interesting specimen." "You're a specimen of something," said Sergeant Tobin. "Well, I'm getting over to the telephone." And over to the telephone he went. "Hello? Hello? Is that the army?" "Yeah, army here." "I want a bomb squad." "Well, I want a blonde, but I haven't got one." "Is there a bomb squad to hand?" "Well, now, I think they might be having their tea." "It's the morning, you fool." "Oh, God, I've been up all night. I've been on sentry duty." "Just a second. The nearest bomb squad is at the Curragh camp. It's several hours away. We'll get them coming in their little jeep." "Right, I have to wait for a little jeep," said Sergeant Tobin. "Feely, batter that window with your head to make a bigger hole so I can get out without making ribbons in my uniform again." "Are you sure you want me now to do that, Sergeant? Because your uniform is pretty much in ribbons as it is, and all that blood coming out of you is a really unappetizing sight." "Feely, do as you're told. A member of the Garda always does what he is told by his superior. His not to reason why, his but to do or die. It's the dying part I don't entirely understand." So, Guard Feely, showing unwonted intelligence, removed his shoe and battered open the window with the heel thereof. Out came Sergeant Tobin. "You're looking well for a man that's been cut to ribbons, Sergeant," said Feely, trying to ingratiate himself. Meanwhile, up at the crevasse, well, it wasn't a crevasse, it was a crater. I sometimes get my craters mixed up with my crevasses. Anyway, they were looking in still. Have you ever seen the like of some structure like that? Pat? No, mate. Here's the parish priest. He knows about things. We'll ask him. Father Rafferty, what's that down there? Father Rafferty had looked down. It's a ting, he said. Well, they were all agreed on this. There was something of a substantial nature down at the bottom of the crater. But its nature was unguessed as yet. But revelations were to come. Do you realize it's time you were all in Mass? Said Father Rafferty. I can't be waiting around for too long. Listen, said Pat. When there's a thing like this, we all get a dispensation. Good idea, said Father Rafferty. I was a bit tired anyway. Now, so Father Rafferty went back singing his favourite song, Rolf Harris's Two Little Boys, and you're all laughing at it. And the rest of them continued to look at the thing. What kind of a thing is it? God, Pat, have you developed a stutter? No, but I've got my pipe in my mouth. Now look, what kind of a thing is it? Well, it's a kind of a yoke. Now, those who are not familiar with the Irish dialect, a yoke is simply a synonym for a thing, except it's a bit vaguer. If you look up the second edition of the Oxford English Dictionary, you will see yoke, a thingamy, Anglo-Irish. They mean Hiberno-English, but they like to call it Anglo-Irish at Oxford. Anyway, they continued to stare at this structure for hours, their strangely etched faces gazing inwards. I think it must have come from outer space, for I've never seen the likes of anything like that, said an opinionated farmer. And there's a strange, almost musical sound in the air, said somebody else, as though someone were singing. Could it be an angel? And a little song was heard in the distance. Two little boys. There was a whirring as of an engine. Goodness! It's going to take off, so back, everybody back. But no, it was the jeep containing the Irish bomb squad, three little harassed-looking men. We've come pell-mell from the Curragh, said their leader, Captain Flaherty. He jumped from the jeep and went rushing over to the crevasse. God, he said, that's a very strange thing. Just what we said it was, it's a thing, it's a thing. Of course it's a thing, said the captain. What do you expect it to be? But the thing is it an explosive thing? Would somebody like to throw a stone in there and see if it explodes? I think we should throw Ned in there, said somebody. Ned was not a popular member, being what was known as the local gone bean man, or as such a person is called in parts of the United States, a Shylock. He was a person who lent money. Ned would do well down there. Where's Ned? I'm off to Mass, said Ned. You're a Protestant, said somebody. What are you going off to Mass for? Right. I shall lower myself in here. If I do not emerge, said Captain Flaherty. If I do not emerge, tell my wife in a tactful way that I'm not coming back. How do you tell somebody tactfully you're not coming back? Well, tell her something that she'll know from the way you've told her that. Tell her that I won't need my dinner on the table tonight when I come in. And the message will seep through to her gradually. Now I'm descending. Sergeant O'Toole, pass me the rope. Yeah, Captain, I'm afraid we've forgotten the rope. Oh, well, has anyone a rope around here? No, that is string, not a rope. How am I going to get down the... You may wonder what that was. Someone was kindly helping Captain Flaherty to get into the printer. He landed with a crash, but there was no explosion, even though he landed on the tin. God, it's not much of a UFO if it doesn't explode, said Pat. I was waiting to see the bits of him go flying up into the air. This is a disappointing moment for me. It must be a very small UFO, actually, said somebody else. Are they midget men from somewhere? Because, it's not very big. Maybe it is just a piece of a UFO, said another. And maybe, actually he didn't finish the sentence because he couldn't think of what it was. The captain, meanwhile, was ferreting about. He examined the thing carefully. Then he said, right, haul me up. Guard Feely put in his tuppence halfpenny worth here. What are we supposed to haul you up with? We haven't got a rope. Feely, you're going to come in use once again, said Sergeant Tobin. I require your trousers. But God in heaven, Sergeant, you've got trousers of your own. I know they're a bit ragged from going through the window. But you don't need to wear 2 pairs of trousers in this kind of weather. Sure, look, the sun is shining. I need your trousers for practical purposes. Oh God, have you got incontinent again? No, I have not. Pass me your trousers, Feely. So Feely took off his trousers. This is how he did it. No, I'll spare you that. Now, and he passed them to Sergeant Tobin. Sergeant Tobin leaned over, holding it by the trousers by one leg, while the other leg went down. Captain Flaherty grasped the other leg. Pull, Feely, said the sergeant. There was an unholy ripping sound as Feely pulled. God, that captain's awful heavy. We need something a bit stronger to lower down to him. Get Ned, said somebody. Ned was taken and lowered down. So Captain Flaherty grabbed him by the arms. Pull him up now. Oh God, this is going to kill me back, said Feely. We need a chain of people to pull Guard Feely up. Form a line there. Why don't you lead us, Sergeant, said Pat. Show us how 'tis done. So Sergeant Tobin pulled, and up came Ned, and up came the captain. And the sergeant said, God, you lot aren't very good pullers, pulling me along behind. Well, we haven't been pulling you along behind at all, said Pat. We thought with your back turned you wouldn't notice we weren't there. The captain emerged and held up the object. God, you were right, Pat. It's a thing, all right. This is the ball cock of a lavatory, said Captain Flaherty. Janie, what's a lavatory, said Pat. This is a hoax. God, what does a hoax mean, said Nick. Is it the same thing as a thing? My time has been wasted coming down to defuse a ball cock. So Guard Feely approached the sergeant. Should we conduct a cunning investigation and find out whose lavatory doesn't have a ball cock? And that way we discover who has planted this thing here. Feely, if you think after the day I've had I'm going to go around investigating people's bogs, you are quite mistaken. It was a hoax. Now, it may have occurred to you that I have embroidered a little of the dialogue here, but quite definitely there had been an explosion, a huge crater, and an object apparently from outer space. What had happened? The explanation was unfolded within the next few days. A practical joker had first of all gone out in the depths of the night. He wasn't a crop circle maker like you heard about earlier. He was a digger, and he had dug the crater. Down in the crater he had placed the ting. And then he had gone into an adjoining field and set off an explosion. Everybody had been fooled. But you see, everybody, I suppose, wanted to be fooled. Not a lot happened in Duncan. And here was a genuine UFO, or something at least mysterious. So people were all too ready to believe that there was a radioactive ting down there. Now, the days passed, and people came to figure out who it was who had pulled off the joke. But they never said anything to anybody, because in villages in Ireland, you don't inform. And therefore, to this day, I don't know who it was who did it. I don't know if he's still alive. But he certainly caused a magnificent hoax, as hoaxes go. It's still remembered in the lore of the place, I have no doubt. Duncannon, if anyone is down in that area, is on the estuary of the River Barrow. It was from there King James set out after the Battle of the Boyne, fleeing, a thing he was remarkably good at, and as he fled, he noticed two headlands on either side, one called Hookhead and the other Crookhead. And he said, or so the tale goes, "By hook or by crook, I shall come back." And true to his word, he didn't. Now, the thing is that the hoax occurred as I have described. But if a hoax like that occurs, people want to believe. There wasn't a single skeptic. They had various theories as to what it might be. Some people thought it a natural phenomenon of some kind, no doubt. Some people opted for something from outer space. The identity of the hoaxer remains quite unknown. Now, if anybody is an actual researcher into UFO hoaxes, it appeared quite widely in the press. It was covered by the English press as well at the time, and they rarely covered anything that came out of Ireland. That was before the trouble started. Once people started doing interesting things like blowing each other up, it of course became a much more interesting place, and they even got people like Kate Adie to go there. But if anyone wants to look it up, the two local papers are the New Ross Standard and the Munster Express, one of which managed to get a photographer down there, and he had a ting that took photographs. And there appeared in it actually I don't know what the captain's name was. Flaherty was one of my embroideries, holding proudly in his hand the ballcock of Duncan.